How many of you been zapped? I've been zapped many times and for many hours, I guess. 12, probably 30 hours I've been zapped. And zap means I've gotten lapped by Zach Bitter in many a race. Actually, I've done 3 races with Zach. In fact, one reason I was thinking about Zach today is he's out in Phoenix, Arizona at the Desert Solstice 24-hour. It's just the early hours of the race, but I've been following it on the internet, and he is going for the 24-hour record, something he really hasn't done. He's run 24-hour races, but mainly just to get a 100-mile record, and then he's usually done. Of course, he owns the world record in the 100 and in the 12-hour race, and then he's done, and he hasn't gone to full length. But he has been training all summer for this, specifically to go the 24-hour distance. He's run for the Americans in the 100K, and I'd love to see him on the USA 24-hour team when we hopefully have those championships again. So this summer, he ran broke the record, world record on a treadmill, 100 miles on a treadmill. Phenomenal performance. He did it in his apartment with his wife Nicole there. They had 2 Nordic tracks, mainly because he kept overheating and sweating on him so much they had to go back and forth. The commentary was amazing. I remember the ending part with Nicole, Camille Herron, Maggie Guterall, Sally McRae, and then Bert Kreischer came on and started talking about it too. So that was a really phenomenal performance, and he got that world record. In fact, basically every time Zach sets out to get a record, he gets one, like 2019, he went to the Dome and broke that 100-mile record at the Dome there in Madison, Wisconsin, in the indoor skate rink. I was there trying to unsuccessfully do a 6-day. And so, yes, being zapped is being lapped by Zach Bitter, and I have had that happen to me quite a few times. Zach is just phenomenally fast. You know, he's running in his 12-hour 100-mile races like 7-minute miles, 3-hour marathons. I'm doing, 15 to 18-minute miles. So the kind of times, many times when I've been on a track with him, he's lapping me every single lap. And so my first time I got to run against him, interesting, I was kind of doing a little internet research, and he started doing ultras in 2010. And that's basically when I got back into doing ultras in 2010. And so I've known Zach and his performances. And then, like I said, he was pretty good at doing the trails and roads, and then he got on the track and just started crushing some remarkable, getting those 12-hour, 100-mile records. So we crossed paths for the first time when we both ended up at 6 days of the Dome in Alaska in 2014. I went there off of my 6th day of 322 miles and across the years earlier in the year. So I was thinking, I'm going to get to 400. Got there, and it just wasn't happening. I went out hard, blew up spectacularly. By the second day, I'd blown my quad so bad. I've never done that before, but man, they hurt. And they, to this day, kind of bother me. But the track there was an indoor track, but it was kind of really hard, had a thin layer of rubber on it. And as David Johnson, who lives in Alaska and now has done 500 plus miles himself, he goes, yeah, it's like running inside a giant Costco. So anyways, at these 6-day races, you often have 24-hour races, 48 and 72-hour races as well. And Zach came, and he threw down a 12-hour, 100-mile, broke the world records. So we're on a 400-meter track, and he's whizzing by me every lap. Pretty crowded conditions. We probably had 30, 40 people, maybe even more, on the track. Of course, today, thankfully, at the Desert Solstice, they limit it to like 20-something people, so he won't have so much traffic. Pretty good conditions to go fast. I coach, Stacy Costa, who I've gone the Desert Solstice with twice crewing, and I've got to see Zach run those races along with other people that are at the race today. Desert Solstice has bathrooms right on the course, and so that always helps right off the track. And same thing with there at the Dome, the first Dome and the second Dome. That was one of the things I commented about Killian and his supposed attempt at a 24-hour. Is they're running on this frozen track outdoors. The weather was terrible, not really any competition, and then he even had to use the restroom. He had to go off like 20 yards off the course, which just is wasted time. So anyways, we were at the Dome, and it was hot and humid in there because you didn't have any air in there, and Zach's just flying around, and I take lots of photography and videos, and I was trying to find the video. I can't find it, but anyways, it was probably halfway through Zach's race, 6 hours in, and I kind of thought, okay, I'm going to try and run along with him and get some video. So I kind of took it easy for a few laps, and then Zach comes, and I'm getting out of his way, but I get my camera ready, and I start running along with him. and I ran maybe a half a lap with them, just huffing and puffing, running 7-minute miles. But the best part was just everyone in the race was just laughing their asses off, because even then I was 250, and I'm still 250, and just seeing a 250-pound guy running along trying to video Zach. And another highlights of the race was it was weird at the dome. The theory was we were going to have this dome all to ourselves, and we had the track to ourselves, but they still had the soccer leagues going on in the middle of the field. They had these big nets, so you didn't have to, worry about soccer balls and people getting in your way, and they had a bridge that, so that you didn't cross the track. But the problem is we had morning, boot camp classes, and then they actually had daycare at the facility, and so they had kids in there from 8 in the morning until 5 in the evening, which was kind of distracting. So, but what was great is when the kids were there, they're watching Zach, and so for a while, Zach was actually running extra distance because he was running over to where the kids were in the stands and high-fiving them as he ran around. They were cheering him. That was pretty fun. So that was my first, experience with Zach, watching him get those records. Then in 2015, I talked to Zach off and on, and then one of his main sponsors back then was Vespa, this energy company, and they're out here in Central California, the Fresno area. They were looking to get a facility because Zach, realized hey, I'm always on these courses with tons of other people. Is there a chance we could find a track and, go for a record performance? And so they kind of liked the weather here, and it was in April, and they thought, hey, we'll come to Central Valley and run. And so they got a hold of me hey, do you know any tracks? And I was like, well, Bakersfield, they're all locked up. We only at the time had one all-weather track. 16 high schools, one all-weather track. Then our colleges, they're locked up, lock and key. I said, well, Clovis has got an awesome track and might be able to use that. And then what ended up happening is my friend Scott Newton, who back then used to own the Soul to Soul shoe stores and puts on the Judgment Day races, a lot of half marathon series. He is now a councilman in Pismo. He just got elected. Congratulations, Scott. He used to live in Kingsburg, and Kingsburg, I didn't know this, has an all-weather track that's lit and is open to the public 24 hours a day. And Kingsburg is kind of Bakersfield. You got LA, 2 hours south, north of LA is Bakersfield, and then you have Bakersfield, and then 2 hours up the road is Fresno, where we have the state track meet, state cross-country meets. And so kind of in the middle is Kingsburg, and it's kind of got this whole Nordic feel. So he ended up contacting some people in Kingsburg, and that's where Zach was going to do the race. Originally, Zach's plan was to run the thing solo, which I was like, wow, a solo time trial. But then we found out, according to the rules, you had to have a couple other people in the race. That's kind of like what Killian was doing. And so I was like, well, I'll be there. So me and one other guy from Fresno, who I had done the Ray Lakes loop with, I'm blanking on his name right now, but we ended up going to the race, and Zach was out there running his 7-minute pace, and I was out in the second or third lane, just kind of walking and taking pictures and having a good time. And usually in these loop races on tracks, you turn around every 4 hours. Zach decided to do it for 6 hours, but probably 30, 40 miles in, he started having a leg issue, and then eventually did call it a day. So that was the last time there. And then obviously following him and watching his races, and he's jumped into some trail running. He's done javelina in Western States. And then, I guess, gosh, it was just 2019. Seems so long ago with this whole COVID thing. But I've done my first 100-miler was the Endurance Challenge, which the money goes to the 100-Mile Club, which is this organization that gets kids running throughout the year, works with the teachers, and you get prizes for 25 miles, 50 miles, 75, 100. So for $10, you can sponsor a kid. So my first 100 back in 2011, I ran that and raised money for that. And they also have a timed race in March. And last minute, I decided to jump into it in 2019. And it's at the school that started this whole program that's now nationwide. I'll try and remember to put it in the show notes. And I showed up for the 12-hour. I've done the 12-hour. There were 4. Usually walk it, get 40-something miles. They've had it for a few times. And so I decided there was a 24, but the 24 started the night before. Night starts are terrible. So anyways, I got there early in the morning, got my stuff, set up my table, hanging out in the room where the registration was. It was the cafeteria of the school, just trying to stay warm, wait for the 7 o'clock start or whatever it is. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, Zach and his wife walk in. I had no idea they were coming. And I'm like, whoa, you're here. And I'm like, well, I guess now I'm not getting first. Jokingly. There's probably a dozen people in the 12-hour. He's like, yeah, I'm coming here. I want to run fast. It was a half-mile loop. It was supposedly sanctioned, certified loop. And I was like, okay, I'm surprised you're here. And unfortunately, the day before, it had been really high winds, so that porta potties got knocked down. So now we had the whole bathroom situation where you're like 30, 40 yards away. And this course is kind of like, runs on kind of a track and around the infield of the school. It's kind of dirt. It's kind of lumpy. You got to run on some grass. Not too many people in the race. And so I brought my folding table. I think Zach and his wife flew in from Phoenix, where they live. So I let them use part of my table. And, the race goes off. It's half-mile loop. Zach is passing me every lap. The one issue we had at this race was, though, at 10 o'clock, they were having a 5K. And there were a couple hundred people in the race, jumped onto the half-mile course. And so Zach is having to just run around and weave around all these people. He was going fast. I thought he was going to get 100 in the 12. He was on a record performance. But then the last hours or two, he kind of backed off. And he ended up getting like 95 and a half miles. And, of course, won the race. Now, as fun as, he's literally lapping me almost every lap because I was doing 16-minute miles and he's doing 7s or 8s. Well, it ended up one woman did 50, and I knew I couldn't get second, but I knew I could get third. And I really pushed, and I ended up getting 43 miles in the 12 hours. And so I podiumed with second male, but Zach beat me by 52 miles. 52 miles in a 12-hour race. So that was very fun to be out there with. And, of course, Zach is just a great guy and super nice gentleman, just friendly to everybody, even with all the people in his way. He's high-fiving kids, just having fun out there. So I really look forward to seeing how he does today in the 24. I'm hoping the weather's good. I'm hoping everything happens. Seems like whenever he puts his mind to it and thinks about it, he does an amazing performance. So I will be waiting. It's got, he's only, I don't know, what time is it here in Bakersfield? It's 12:45. So he's got, they've only been going for 5 or 6 hours. So I will probably check in later on to see what's going on and tell you all too. And as always, stay healthy, be boring, not epic, except on race day.